remains and will continue to be the greatest country in the history of the world. And I want to finally close with one final story. You know, the reality is this. I truly believe this president looks to me to be a decent man. He's a good husband. He's a good father. I really only have two complaints about this president. Number one is that he is the most liberal president, most liberal ideological president since President Jimmy Carter occupied the White House. My second complaint about this president is that he is the most incompetent president to occupy the White House since President Jimmy Carter. And I'm going to close with a final story about his incompetence. During the BP oil spill, we spent a lot of time working with this president up close. And you know, time and time again, he would tell us about his Nobel Prize-winning Secretary of the Department of Energy, Secretary Chu. I began to wonder if that was the man's first name. He kept saying Nobel Prize so often, I began to think that was the man's first name. And I realized this president is surrounded by very smart people, but for some reason he wouldn't listen to the people on the ground who were most impacted by this oil spill, who knew these waters better than anyone. Time and time again, he kept refusing our suggestions and ideas. A local resident finally said, you know, when they say that help is coming tomorrow, they don't mean help is coming tomorrow. They just mean help is not coming today. That's all that it means when they say help is coming tomorrow. Well, we kept being told, look, you've got to put up with that oil coming into your coast. One day, a local fisherman came up with a great idea. He said, Governor, why don't we go vacuum that oil up before it hits our coast? Why do we keep waiting for it to eat away our marshes and our wetlands? So that's a great idea. Called up the White House and said, we've got a great idea down here. Why don't we vacuum that oil up before it hits our coast? They acted like we were idiots. They said, Governor, you know that oil is in the water. How in the world are you going to get a vacuum truck out in the water? I said, well, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but why don't you put a truck on the back of a boat and go and get it? And I hate this answer from the federal government. They said, we can't do that. We have never done that before. I said, why don't we try it? They refused to try it, so I ordered the Louisiana National Guard to build 2 prototypes to show that this could be done. There's only one problem. You know, we've got a Louisiana National Guard. We don't have a Louisiana Navy. It's not like we have a bunch of ships just waiting to go out there. The first 2 prototypes we built were the funniest looking contraptions you've ever seen. It was literally a truck on the back of a boat, on the back of a barge out there. This thing looked like it was going to sink. There was a national reporter that came down to see it. He looked at this first prototype and he said, Governor, aren't those the same vacuum trucks you use to clean the porta potties after football games on a Friday night? I said, please don't put that in the newspaper. People in New York will think we're going crazy. But that's exactly what it was. It was literally those trucks on the back of a boat. But here's the crazy thing they worked. They picked up thousands of gallons of oil. This is what I love about the private sector. We started getting calls from companies saying, Governor, don't use those barges. Don't use those trucks. We've got industrial pumps, industrial barges. We had dozens of these working, picking up oil all along our coast. And then I got the call. About a week later, the White House called me up saying, Governor, we are shutting down. We have shut down all your barges. I said, why? This is the first thing that seems to be working out there. They said, well, Governor, we haven't done our inspections. I said, what inspections? They said, we've ordered all the barges back to bays, back to their ports, because we have to check the valves. But you see, if they're not using the right valves, there's the danger you might drop some oil back into the water. I said, we're picking up thousands of gallons of oil and you're worried about drops? I said, those are the rules. I said, you've got 24 hours and we're going to order them back into the water. Several hours later, I guess they realized how ridiculous this was. They called back and said, we're not checking the valves anymore, but they still have to stay in port. Because now we need to count the number of life jackets and fire extinguishers in every single boat. I said, why can't you do this in the water while they're picking up the oil? They said, those are the rules. 24 hours later, I headed to the port myself to go see those barges. I got a call on the way there saying they'd finally given up. They canceled the inspections. The barges could go back to work. Now, the reason I tell you that story, they wasted 24 precious hours while that oil came into our coast and continued to eat away at our wetlands. The reason I tell you that story is it seems to me this president's surrounded by a lot of very book-smart people. But it also seems to me like this president, before he was elected president, really never ran anything. before he was elected president. And I don't know about you, but I don't believe we can afford another 4 years of on-the-job training for the President of the United States. It is time for the Republican Party, it is time for we as New Yorkers and the Louisianians and Americans to stand up for the American dream. Say we believe in a brighter future for our children. We are going to put an end to the mortgaging of their livelihoods and their future. And we're going to do that by, first of all, taking back the White House, taking back the Senate, keeping the Congress, and preserving that American dream for our children and our grandchildren. God bless y'all and thank y'all very much for coming to